Australian off the top of that tree.
We are getting ready for Diff's presentation.
I'm sure you're SAPR qualified too, right?
Well, I tell you what, you know as well as I do. That's the way to rappel, not with that damn.
Rappelling.
That's.
They show you how to make that seat with just a piece of rope. Yep. It gets you. It's hitting your shit.
It's called Swiss. Basically, it's taking the rope and making it hard. Be careful, all right?
Yes, sir. Good to go.
No, he's using the
Smash it over that one. We got to make a swing out of it.
Oh, Diff.
There you go.
Not a problem. All right. All right, gentlemen. You ready, Mr. G? I am ready. All right, good morning. My name is Dave Diffenderfer, and this presentation is going to be on rappelling. Okay? During this presentation, I'm going to talk about the history of rappelling, my history, and the history of rappelling itself. I'm going to talk about how to tie up to an anchor point. I'm going to talk about the basic equipment you need to rappel. I'm going to talk about the 3 positions of rappelling. And I'm going to talk about the 2 different types of rappelling. My own personal history with rappelling is I went in the military in 2004, and I went to 3 different courses that each had rappelling instruction during it. At each of those courses, we got about a day's worth of instruction, and then we had to qualify. So basically, we just had to do all these techniques. We had to demonstrate that we could tie the knots, and then we had to demonstrate the rappels. After those 3 courses, I felt confident, so I went out and bought all this equipment, and I've taken my friends rappelling probably about 15 times. Now, the history of rappelling itself started in 1879 by a French guide. He was a French guide in the Alps, and his name was Jean Charlet. And he was a rock climber, so he would try to summit a couple rock faces. And during that time, whenever you would try to summit a face, and if you would fail, it was a real hassle and it was real dangerous coming back down the rock side. So him and his buddies got together, and it took them 3 years to figure out how to rappel. They set this all up, and it was a much faster and safer method. Now, the basic equipment that you need to rappel is a harness. This harness right here is for the seat hip rappel. It's your basic rappel. This harness is for the Australian rappel. You need 3 locking carabiners. This right here is a locking carabiner. This right here is just a regular carabiner. Now, the reason why you need a locking carabiner is because a regular carabiner, as you can see, has nothing restricting the gate from opening. Alright, so if you have your ropes hooked up and you're rappelling, let's say you got it hooked up and there's a rock there, it could possibly open this gate, and then what's ever in the gate could possibly come out, which would be your rope, which could be a bad day for you. Alright? So what we do is we get these, and it has a nut that goes up to the top and restricts the gate from opening. You also need 2 150-foot static ropes, and then you need a pair of gloves. Because when you're rappelling, you're going to be having your brake hand, and the ropes will be going through your palm. So you got to make sure that these gloves have reinforcement on them, okay, to stop you from getting rope burn. Alright, now I'm going to go over an anchor point. This right here is good enough for an anchor point. Usually when I rappel, I try to find a tree that's about 8 inches in diameter. Whenever you're selecting a rappel or an anchor point, just look at your tree, look up. If there's green growing, it means it's alive, that means that the root structure is intact, and you can hook up to it and rappel, and it will be able to hold the weight of you rappelling, and it will be able to hold the ropes as you rappel. Now, the basic knot, which you guys have in your handout here, is the end of the line bow line. Okay? As you can see here, I can quickly tie this knot. And this is the attraction of this knot. It takes about 5 seconds to tie, okay? And the reason why it's so good is because it can quickly be tied and quickly untied. All right, this knot has origins back to 1627. John Smith wrote a book called A Seaman's Grammar. It was basically an instruction manual given to sailors, okay? So this knot has been around for 400 years, tried and true. Okay, so to hook up to your anchor point, all you're going to do is create your end of the line bow line, and all it does is creates a fixed loop at the end of the rope, okay? And if you look, there's a completed bow line in your packet there. One of the checkpoints is just make sure it has these two bites. This bite going around your standing end of the rope, and this bite biting the loop, okay? So all I'm going to do for my anchor point, hook my lock and carabiner up to that loop, and do 2 wraps around this tree. Now you want to do 2 wraps so it can handle the weight of you and the force you create when you rappel down the rock. Lock it onto itself, close the gate, and then cinch it up. You want to make sure these ropes are running parallel with each other and they're tight. Because if they're not, when you rappel and you create that force, it's going to make these loops cinch together and you're going to drop, okay? So just negate that from happening. So when you hook up your anchor point, just have all these ropes tight to each other. Just go around, check it out, you're good to go. And one last thing, make sure that your gate is facing up, all right? So whenever you're rappelling down, the force isn't going onto the gate. All right, so your anchor point's set up. Now I'm going to go over the 3 basic positions when you're rappelling. There's